stocks falling today after yet another rift in U.S.-China trade talks. Chinese officials cutting their trip to the U.S. short. No explanation. They actually canceled a trip to visit farms in Montana. President Trump later saying he doesn't need to strike a deal with China ahead of the 2020 election. The real story, though, take a look at what happened in the bond market. Well, we saw stocks go up and down according to these trade headlines. We saw bond yields sink, and pretty much here we are at the lows of the session, 1.721%. And they had been up prior to those trade headlines about China canceling the deal at around 1.78 or 9. So what is telling the true story here in terms of how we should view where the trade talks are, and how do we set up for next week, Tim?
I think certainly the bond market is somewhat concerned. I think the bond market also listened to Eric Rosengren of the Boston Fed. I think he also listened to the comments that were coming out of Clarida. So you had Fed comments that basically indicated, hey, one, we don't really necessarily want to push rates much lower in terms of the Fed funds rate. And I think you get the sense that the market overall is then going to be concerned about growth, that the Fed is not as aggressive.
Right. I was surprised that Rosengren saying that manufacturing is already in recession effectively didn't hit the markets a little bit harder.
Yeah, I mean, both the Fed governors were not too enthusiastic about the U.S. economy, and particularly Clarida talked about the European economy getting hit hard, and we know that has filtered over. So the danger to this stock rally and the danger that we have is that you have this prolonged trade war, which Guy has talked about for probably a year and a half now, and it continues to hit earnings. So we are back in this pattern of one day, great news, stock market goes up. Next day, all of a sudden, it falls apart. Stock market goes down.
We've heard Fed representatives tell us that the tariff issue hasn't filtered through to the economy yet. And I think that if it continues to go on, you're just guaranteed more of a rate cut. So to me,
so it's a win-win situation.
I knew you were going to say that because you don't like that.
Well, I mean,
so I'm not going to say it's a win-win.
I don't trust win-win.
I'm not going to say it's a win-win, but I wouldn't be afraid of. I wouldn't be afraid of it.
Guy.
There was that good book, that Winn-Dixie book. Remember that book? It was kids. You're looking at the clock. You want me to 141 was the high in the TLT back in July of 2016. We blew through it to the upside, means yields exploded to the downside. We've retested it. I think yields are going lower. I have no idea what that means to the broader market, but I think TLT goes higher from here.